World War I. In the early 20th century, World War I, also known as the First World War or the Great War, was a global conflict that lasted from 1914 to 1918. The war was fought primarily in Europe, but it also involved countries from around the world, including the United States, Russia, and Japan. The war was one of the deadliest in human history, with an estimated 16 million people losing their lives. The main cause of World War I was the complex web of alliances and rivalries that existed between the major European powers at the time. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary on June 28, 1914, provided the spark that ignited the war. Austria-Hungary blamed the assassination on Serbia, and it declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. This event set off a chain reaction of events that led to the involvement of other countries, including Germany, Russia, France, and Great Britain. The war began with a series of rapid mobilization and invasions, with Germany quickly overrunning Belgium and much of France. The war quickly settled into a trench warfare stalemate on the Western Front, with neither side able to gain a significant advantage. The war also saw fighting in various other theaters, including the Eastern Front, the Middle East, and Africa. One of the most significant events of the war was the entry of the United States into the conflict. The United States had remained neutral for the first 3 years of the war, but it was eventually drawn into the conflict by Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare and the Zimmermann telegram. President Woodrow Wilson declared war on Germany on April 6, 1917. The entry of the United States into the war provided a much-needed boost to the Allied powers, and it helped to tip the balance of the war in their favor. Another significant event of the war was the Russian Revolution of 1917, which saw the overthrow of the Tsarist government and the establishment of communist government under the leadership of Vladimir Lenin. The revolution led to the withdrawal of Russia from the war, which was a major blow to the Allied powers. However, the new communist government later signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany, which effectively ended Russia's involvement in the war. The war finally came to an end on November 11, 1918, with the signing of the Armistice of Compiègne between Germany and the Allied powers. The treaty was signed in a railroad car outside of Compiègne, France, and it marked the end of the fighting on the Western Front. The treaty, however, did not bring a permanent end to the war, as the final peace treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, was not signed until June 28, 1919. The Treaty of Versailles was the peace treaty that ended World War I, and it was signed in the Palace of Versailles in France. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including war guilt, territorial losses, and heavy reparations. The treaty also created the League of Nations, which was an international organization established to promote peace and cooperation between nations. The war had a profound impact on the world, both in terms of its immediate aftermath and its long-term consequences. In terms of its immediate aftermath, the war resulted in the loss of millions of lives, the displacement of millions of people, and the destruction of much of Europe. The war also led to the collapse of the Russian, German, Austro-Hungarian, and Ottoman empires, and it reshaped the political and economic landscape of Europe. In terms of its long-term consequences, the war had a significant impact on the international political and strategic balance of power. It marked the end of the dominance of the European powers and the emergence of the United States and the